Very good, excellent. But I think Joey and Norton are here, and we're going to be talking racing and lubrication and a lot of cool stuff. So on to you, Jeff, and we'll see you guys in about 50 minutes.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Hey guys, how we doing today?
Doing fine. How about you?
I'm doing good. I can't tell because I can't see the name tags right now. So who's Jerry, who's Joey, and who's Nolan?
So I'm Joey Cabrera, the technical director at Motul.
I'm Nolan Browning, marketing manager for Motul USA in Canada. Well,
I'm very pleased to meet both of you and excited about the fact that, we're kind of closing out today here. And hopefully you're having a wonderful day. I know we've been busy here at EPARTRADE trying to get everybody took care of since this morning. And I'm really looking forward to it. I've been doing a little research on your company, but I would like to turn it over to you guys and to kind of kick this thing off. And where do we start? Because I know where we're trying to get to, and that's a lot of up-to-date new product that you're bringing out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll start again, just for people that don't know of Motul, we've been around for over 165 years now, since 1865. So 1853, sorry. So been around since
1853.
We could probably fight with some other companies on who's the original oil or lubricant company in the world, but we're amongst the earliest ones. And we've worked now, this is our 50th anniversary of our Motul 300V line. So you can kind of see it here. That's what we're known for, as a motorsports or racing company. So this is our ester-based oil that's used in racing from Le Mans to Daytona and all over the world. So the history of our brand, the reason for the 300V name is up to that point in 1971, we had 300 victories, major victories around the world. And so they decided the 300V would stand for those victories, and let's make a dedicated motorsports line of product. So celebrating the 50th anniversary, we came out with a new version of it here. So you'll see the difference in the, people know us for our kind of our nice metal cans that we're famous for, and that's going to be transitioning to this new, more carbon textured looking product. So we're excited to launch this new product. We like to say it's there's nothing wrong with the current product, but there's certain technologies and improvements with anything in motorsports. So Joey's going to probably go into more.
Yeah, we're always innovating. We never stopped innovating and staying in front of the competition. Worldwide, 300V is known not just in motorsport, but also in power sports. A lot of research and development goes behind it. So it's very important to always stay there. New engines change, new technology change. So does lubricants. They're changing all the time. So I'm glad to say that 300V is a very unique product, very performance, competition, top tier product that is known around the world. And
and I want to jump in here real quick and say, what I was able to learn based off of reading was the fact that the 300V was representative of, because you guys had a high quality, high temperature oil, and at that time it was really in a league all its own. Am I correct in what I read there? Because we all know that that's one of the biggest things that we all fight when it comes to any kind of potential problem with a vehicle, whether it's a competitive vehicle or even the car. You can't stand high oil temperatures, because that's the first thing that'll take the bearings and the rings right out of one.
Yeah, I think to jump in there too, when it first started too, the ester technology that we use today was used in aerospace and some of these these industries outside of automotive, because they couldn't take the heat. They had drastic temperature changes. You'd be sitting on tarmac in 100-degree weather and have a high heat in the engine, and then it's sitting for long times on the runway, and then it takes off and it goes to sub-zero temperatures right away. So they were already started utilizing that technology, and we applied a lot of those same kind of concepts to motorsports that was having similar kind of heats to a less drastic extreme. So
absolutely, and that's why we came out with products like this, because we know how hot an engine can get. When you run an engine for 24 hours in a race like the 24 hours of Le Mans, you better have the best protection because of that type of temperatures that he's talking about. So yeah, different types of esters, because there's also so many. We're not going to talk about them now because it will go on all day. But yeah, we use some of the best technology out there is today available to us, and this is the concept. This is what we come up with.
And we say ester too. I do want to touch on that. I think some people kind of go, "What is that?" It is a lot of them. They come from different sources. It used to come from animal fats, and it used to come from coconut oil, some of these organic materials. And that's a lot of the people say, "Oh, what did you make improvements on?" We could dive more into that, but a lot of these are getting less mineral oil, less crude products. Everyone's trying to go green, so there's still some of that with performance in mind. So we went. I think it's 25% less carbon footprint when we make this product. And a lot of it's blending some of those esters that do come from these organic materials that are, people always ask us, and you kind of crack open, they go, your oil smells so sweet. And a lot of it is the ester materials. It's not coming from crude oil. It's coming from these sweet, natural kind of lubricants.
Resources,
Your
esters are mostly made from vegetables, minerals, and animal fatty acids. So, that's some of the esters that we use. Refrigeration has been using esters for years for better flow under very freezing conditions. Aviation, like you mentioned too, fluctuation of temperatures from sitting in the tarmac being minus 36 up in the air. So you need a very strong product to take that type of abuse for sure.
And we use to jump to, so a lot of these things, we partnered with at Rolex 24 2 years ago in 2019, BMW Motorsports team, we signed that deal. And I like to say on the marketing side, we never put our sticker on a car or bike without the oil actually going into the product. That's one stand we make globally. If you see Motul branding on a product, it's because we're using them as a technical partner to test our products, to give us feedback, to take oil samples. So we went and used kind of an unmarked formula at the time, which is now this product at the Rolex 24 in the BMW Team RLL cars. They were running the 0-30 weight to kind of see how's it holding up, how's the shear strength, is it still remaining that that 30 viscosity after 24 hours at Rolex and Daytona. So we got samples from them, took it back, sent it back to France. Joey looked at some of it too. So we all got these feedback from these teams like BMW to develop this new product that sees, you can talk about it, Joey, like increase in horsepower, increase in
horsepower. Protection is a big deal because you're racing for longevity, 24 hours, 10 hour, 12-hour endurance races. You're looking for that longevity and that strength on that film of oil that is not going to give out. And, give you that coefficient too, because the way this product is designed to give you that horsepower. But at the end of the day, you still want to make sure that you have a viscosity, that you have something there to protect that engine. And with research and development that we do in not just motorsports and power sports, that's where we get that information. Some of that stuff makes it, of course, into our products that we use for the street every day, stuff that has approvals, and recommendations too. So it's very important that our research and development keeps going and going, because that's why we stay in front of the competition.
Well, one of the things I'm sure that some people are going to be wondering about and may even ask here, and again, I encourage all of our folks that are watching and tuned in here this evening to send us some questions. I mean, these guys that's what they're here for. So if there's anything that you would like to know about this particular product, because again, as he pointed out, it's been around for a long time. It's been through a lot of ups and downs, but it's a very successful brand. And, it still is today. It's in over 80 countries around the world. This is not just something you find in France. It's not something you just find here in the United States. So, I mean, it's, international, and it works. I mean, that's the thing is it definitely works. I think one of the questions would be, as we move forward, how about the 300V being, is it fully synthetic compared to some of your other products where only semi-synthetic? I mean, give us a little bit more insight or education on your philosophy when it comes to fully synthetic versus semi.
Yeah, and that's a very good question, because when you say 100% synthetic, here in the United States you say full, in Europe they say 100%, right? If you have a cup of water that's a full or 100% full, it's full. But there's more to that than just what I just explained. There's more of a combination of the formulation, how it has to be mixed with different additives. So sometimes you have to use different groups of oils, or group 3 or group 2, to mix with those additives. Okay, I always use the analogy: if you have chocolate powder and you go home and you want to use it to make a drink, what do you use? What's the carrier? It's the milk. That's the carrier. You're not going to mix it with orange juice because it's not going to mix well. You're not going to mix it with water because it's not going to mix well. So you have to have the right combination, the right ratios to make that product work the way you want it to work or design.
That's kind of, I always say, we look at different esters, and we used to say, oh, it was a double ester blend when we talking about our 300V product, or it's a ester this and that. And I think we found out, it's almost like a curated sample of esters. There's certain esters from different sources that are good for certain things. One for, we talk about horsepower. People don't believe horsepower, but we've had dyno testing from the Porsche team and our fast team that just won the GTD championship, and the Porsche engineers saw an increase in horsepower. It's 3%, something small, but it's because we kind of select these specific ester materials that go into the blend and know, hey, these are going to give that slick, less drag on the motor to give that horsepower increase. And then we'll use this other ester because this has really got high shear stability. So this is going to kind of protect. And then some of those cleaning agents, right? And he says, sometimes, you will put some of these group 3 materials in here because they hold the cleaning products, the additives, detergents, right?
Yeah, absolutely. So, and of course it has detergents, because we get that question asked all the time. He goes, does this have a detergent? Of course, engines get dirty, especially when they're racing for 24 hours. So you need something to pull that dirt and hold on to it until they take out the oil out of the vehicle, right? So yeah, definitely.
And I'll say too, similar to I guess race tires, right? They don't have it was a DOT.
Yeah, DOT.
These don't have any sort of approvals for warranty. So a lot of people say, oh, can you use it in your street car? And I said, hey, yeah, if it's a performance car, you've already you've thrown the warranty out the window on your performance street car. You could feel free to use these. They're going to give you added performance, but we don't have any sort of approvals or markings on here. What that allows us to do is some of those products that we have for synthetic service, which are 8100 products, some of these ones you see back here, they have to have specific additives for catalytic converters, for emissions, to being able to last. Some of these manufacturers, BMW, Porsche, require 12,000 mile plus oil change intervals. So those have different kind of blends based on like what they need in terms of specific additives from the manufacturers. These are purely made for performance. So we don't have to make as many kind of concessions on how that blend is handled, because their main use is strictly performance.
So what Nota's trying to say that this is a true racing product, okay? It has no approvals, no ACA, no API. It doesn't have to. It's like he said, a racing tire that is for the track that has no DOT standards. It just doesn't have it. So same thing here. This is what it was formulated for the highest level of competition, to where you have a product like this, which is more of a street product. It still has a level of performance, of course it does, but it has all the approvals. So we have to meet that criteria of these manufacturers to get those approvals. So it's a little different, long drain interval, not too long of a long drain interval, because it's a racing product. This is going to go up against fuel dilution, wear, heat, you name it, it's going to get beat up. To where this has to last you, if the manufacturer says, hey, that approval that you got for BMW has to last you 12,000 miles, it does. Rule of thumb, you go to a lot of these service shops, they'll tell you to change it at 5, 7, 6 is the average, where I see a lot more of the independent shops saying come every 6,000 miles. But if you go to the dealer, they'll tell you, no, you bring it every 10,000 miles. So yeah, this product has to live up to that too, if it has that approval.
So all that's to say, I get also, both these are synthetic products in the term that we use in the US, but each has different level of products, right? So this has more high quality group 5 esters, pure synthetic materials, whereas this has to deal with a lot more of the manufacturing requirements, additives. So it's kind of not watered down, because it's still a great product for the street, but again, different uses, right? Different uses, different price brackets. The customers that are going out and racing have slightly higher
and like we always say, it's got to meet its certain standards. Street oil has to meet certain standards to have these approvals.
Yeah.
And guys, real quick, when you're talking about the separation between a high performance versus a racing style, let's just say hypothetically, you're getting ready to run the 24 hours of Le Mans or Daytona, but yet you've also got a world rally car and they're asking recommendations. I mean, would you give them a different type of oil when you see a circumstance where they're really in the throttle a lot more, whereas maybe with a world rally, they're banging on gears and downshifting and doing a lot more, maybe to abuse to this engine in a different manner? Do you have that kind of product that you can kind of tailor make or advise them you could this would work better in this application versus this?
Yes, absolutely. You have engine builders, right, that build their engines a certain way. They may ask for a certain viscosity. Again, depending on the competition, we have a 300V range that covers everything from a 0.8 to a 2060. So we cover every base. So depending on what the technician says to us, then we can recommend what he would need, because we got to take fuel dilution also into manner that we have a product that's strong enough, because especially like you said, rally cars, you see a lot of that in rally cars, not just your prototypes and endurance cars.
And we kind of broke things down. So what Joey's talking about too, the main difference, right, is we're getting as from our current line to our new line is we added more viscosities. There's more and more performance cars that are wanting to run a thinner viscosity. I mean, to tell some people that you have race vehicles running a 0.8, like Joey just mentioned, or a 0.16,
Right.
how thin that product is, they want the most power, right? They want the least amount of drag. So we have a line, which is this orange brand here, which is the power. So that's the lighter viscosities on the lighter side. We added a total of 6 more viscosities across the whole range. And we kind of separated them into power. That's your lower viscosity, the guys that want the sprint races, the ultimate power. Then we kind of have the middle of the segment, the middle weights, which is called competition. So that's generally like, hey, you're racing, your kind of mid-level endurance cars. Then we have Le Mans, which we're the only ones that are allowed now as a partner of the 24 Hours of Le Mans to have a couple of our viscosities that are literally branded as the 24-hour Le Mans kind of line. And those are your thicker 2060, 1550, 1060. So they're the thicker viscosities that a lot of these guys will run, because if you're running for 24 hours, like you said, you have fuel dilution. You want more kind of longevity. So we kind of break it down exactly how you said. The guy who wants to go out and he's doing a rally, it's a sprint race. We have the power line, the thinner viscosities, because he wants that protection. He's only going to run it for 45 minutes. So we were just at Rallycross with Subaru Motorsports. They're going to run for that race is maybe 12 minutes or less. They want the most power they can out the gate. They don't need the longevity as much.
And that's pretty
cool. Guys,
cool.
you feel like you want some questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Are you ready for some questions from our viewers? One of the comments was, with the updates to the 300V line, are and will there be similar updates to your street sport line?
Yes. I'll talk a little bit about that because I can't talk too much about it. But yes, there's going to be a new line coming out called Power. And that's as much as I can say. But yes, we will add more viscosities. I know right now we have the 550, we have the 540, and that's it. But yes, they are looking into giving it more viscosities and a new name and a new look. Absolutely.
Yeah. And
all right, we have another question also, and it says this individual, I'm working for an engineering consultant, but is about to start a project on optimizing the bottom end lubrication for a NASCAR Cup car engine. We will be looking at current scavenged pumps, bearing sizes, jets, pressure relief valves to find performance. Do you recommend looking at any particular areas to investigate? And my experience would be, all of them. I mean, there's always going to be a part of the engine that maybe is not being paid attention to or can be sweetened. I'd like to say you can sweeten that performance, and you never know what it is until you really get into it, from the bearings to the rods themselves, all this stuff.
No, you're absolutely right. I guess I say yes to that too. And he can even get a hold of us and we can recommend certain things that he can test to see the advantages with this product, especially those esters, like you said. Maybe he's not getting correct lubrication in certain points where they needs that. It's very detrimental to the engine if it doesn't. Esters do that. They're polar by nature, so they get attracted to the ferrous metals also, not just by protecting them, but being there, that film strength, being there for those types of components that sometimes don't get the right lubrication. I know in racing engines, they cover all the bases, I'm sure. But just like anything, it's research and development, right? They're going to see how much horsepower this product can gain, how much protection under stress conditions when they put it in the dyno. I mean, they cover every base. And this is the kind of product that you would want to test with engines like that.
Well, I think to that end too, I think a lot of them, as they can kind of, we've had some teams that they go out and rebuild the motor and they completely re-blueprint it, and they can change the tolerances too. Because I think a lot of times if you're using a lesser quality oil, they tend to go, oh, we got to go thicker. You're wanting horsepower. They re-engineer the rest of the engine to go more horsepower and all this stuff. Then they go thicker on the oil because they think they got to hold up, and that's the only way you're going to have enough longevity, which is the wrong answer. We can work with teams. We can go a little bit thinner, work with them on the tolerances of the motor. Yes. So you could run some of these newer 530s, 520s, and even some of these big block motors. Yeah. Again, depending on how much you want to go through and re-blueprint it, and then get added power within the rules of the series. We can work with them. I think a lot of people just overlook that. They just put in whatever oil and they go, it works, for us for years, for 20 years, let's use the same thick stuff and keep going thicker. And they're really creating more friction, more drag, and
more heat.
Engine
has to work harder to pump that oil up. But the other thing is we do have oils called qualifying oils, but doesn't necessarily mean that if you have an engine that's using a 1550 or something that you're going to go down to a 0.8. No, everything takes a step. And that's what we're here for, to answer those questions. When it comes to that, somebody calls and says, hey, I got this engine that I want, looking for a lighter oil, blah, blah, blah. He gives us some of the schematics, and then we can, again, let them know, hey, this would probably work best for that engine.
One other observation that's been made, and maybe you wanted to address it or not. They said, Jason was saying it looks like they'll be available in different size from before. And I guess they're referring to the 300 container you have being a 5 liter container versus the old 2 liter 10.
Yes.
So
yes, exactly. We realize more and more teams, as cool as these look for the guy, and that's the other part of this. So there's two part of this. You know, the same thing we give to the BMW Motorsports team for Rolex. You can go out and buy at any, you know, a specialty shop or Amazon or any of those websites. But we found, you know, the guys at home love these 2 liters because they're nice, but the teams go, man, if you can give me something bigger, you know, I have, especially we're getting more and more domestic folks, you know, moving away from, we're still a, you know, European company and have a lot of stronghold in those makes, but we're getting a lot of, you know, Corvette owners, things like that. And they go, hey man, I need a whole case of this stuff just to fill my motor. Can you guys make it in a 5 liter or something larger? So yeah, we'll have 5 liters for certain race teams. We can now special order like 20 liters and some kegs and drums. So that's something we never had in the past, but more and more teams are, yeah, they don't want to pour out of the cans all the time. So yes, we'll have a full lineup starting with 2 and 5 liters primarily, and then special order in larger quantities.
Yeah, and just to let you know too, we added actually 5 new viscosities to the 300V. Just believe it, 0.8. 0W8, 0W16, 0W30, 550, and 1060. But when we order those lightweights, just imagine, we wouldn't be talking like that 10 years ago, you know? But now, yeah, they're using 0.8s and 0.16s.
Now, real quick to the one individual I was talking about, Angel, that asked about the NASCAR testing and the stuff they've got coming up. They said, thank you very much for your information, gentlemen. This is fantastic. So if you get a call from Angel, you'll know who it is, Joey or Nolan. Absolutely. That way, at least you know they were paying attention here today, and you know they're taking notes as we go along. And you know the thing is, you talk about the oil weights and how that kind of comes into play. Mm-hmm. And I think we'd be remiss because you know I grew up in an age of straight 50, you know, and we thought we were really doing something. We backed it off to 40 weight, and then all of a sudden, you know, we're working on, you know, how many RPMs you were turning in that engine. That's how much oil pressure you felt like you needed to keep it lubricated. So, I mean, you know, you 6,000 RPM, 60 pounds of pressure. You get up to 8,000, you need 80 pounds of pressure. And then we started learning, well, you know, you're pumping too much oil through there and you're actually stealing horsepower away from the engine with a combination of heavy weight and that much pressure. I mean, the gamut has been run to where now all of a sudden you can take and drop this thing here down to, you know, 50 pounds, 55 pounds, real easy, run a lightweight oil and not steal horsepower, but ensure durability and reliability because of that.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. I think and that's kind of the, you know, people ask like, well, what's the, you know, the 5 and the 30, and there's actually polymers, and we've had polymers, you can kind of play with it. It's one of those things, as it heats up, it gets thicker, right? And that's basically how it works. And so we found more ways to kind of, you know, they started up, and these, again, you still let the engine heat up, and most series do, right? So most series will have it heat up and go to these thicker weights. But absolutely. Again, some of these things, you know, most of the teams, the BMW and the Porsche that they use is 0-40. They want that quick lubrication at startup, get out there, warm it up, and then keep that 40. And it's all about, you know, it's as we get to the digital age and they're doing the blueprints, they can, hey, all these channels in the engine, it can maintain high oil pressure with this thin oil and still make sure it reaches all the critical.
Yeah, especially when you're racing against endurance races, you want to see that consistency in your viscosity, that it doesn't drop too much, but still be there at the end of the race. That's something that they look at. Just imagine they have to look at the horsepower, they have to look at the protection over a period of a 24-hour race. All those things are taken into mind when the 300V is made. And I know we don't have the time today, but we even have graphs, that we've done on dynos and simulated a 24-hour race where it shows you all those components, all those graphs of the engine doing what it would do on a track like a Le Mans track, you know, and seeing that this product at the end of 24 hours, how that product is still there to protect.
And that's the difference too with the old technology. You would have this mineral products and they go, oh, it's a 50 straight weight. And then you look, you know, after you run it for one race and you probably test it with modern technology, and you go, well, it's closer to a 30 weight or less, you know, after a race. And that's kind of the difference with some of these esters is the shear stability. you could test it after 24 hours and the viscosity level or what it's rated at, it has not gone down considerably. It's still enough to protect it at the start of the race. It's still a 50, classified as 50 for the whole race. It's not going to just sit there and just get torn apart.
Yeah,
so
start dropping down in viscosity, then you get into trouble, So like he was saying, the
Well,
shifter,
speaking of that trouble, and again, we touched on this earlier in our conversation about, what your oil line brand was kind of like known for, was being able to handle high temperatures. What is an ideal temperature that for your stuff to perform and either go through its transitional stuff, as far as being 40 weight or anything like that? Do you have anything that you've, when you're testing or you through your all's experience that says, look, if you're going to get out here and run 24 hours of Le Mans, you need to be able to maintain 180 degrees. If you go out and do World Rally, we can see a spike because of mud and whatever else gets in there. We can take 300 degrees and not jeopardize, the durability.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, this oil has been designed to take those types of heat. And I know what you're trying to say, that we could come up with a certain temperature that we've seen out in the race cars. I know when I was at the Long Beach Grand Prix, we had a guy that got a piece of paper or debris stuck in his radiators, and the thing was up close to about 290, and the car came in, they pulled the stuff out, right? And the car came back in for another fault after, and they took the engine apart and says, hey man, that product did its job. He goes, well, why is that? He goes, I know we heated it up beyond what we should have, but it came in for another different issue. And when we took the engine apart anyways, because we had to, we couldn't believe that everything was together. Everything still looked very good to put that engine back and go for another race. It shocked me too, because that's what this product is. Like we say, excuse my language, when the shit hits the fan, we have the protection. And I've seen this on power sports. I've seen this with a lot of racing cars where they come in and something happened where a pebble hit the radiator and the fluid leaked out. And they said, okay, my dummy light goes on. I got to go in. That's it. The engine is done. They take it apart and they've seen, wow, this product really helped when it got to that point. That's the insurance of this product for sure.
Yeah, and I said normal running temperatures, right? Just, some guys like, I like to run it hot or a bigger thermostat. I get it in the mid 200s or whatever. We've also had, so we kind of, around that range is going to be fine to get up to running temperature. But we've had guys, like I said, call us and say, hey, I'm running Pikes Peak altitude. The way I'm setting up the motor, it's like consistently nearing 300 degrees. It's going to be fine. And we say, our answer is always a joke, but we say the car will be on fire before the oil will give out.
That's what we always say.
Exactly.
So I always had this from Dave Woolman. He says, you know what? When it gets to 300, you're just scratching the 300 degree. You're really tapping into it. So yes, definitely it can take heat very well. And if I'm not mistaken, I was told many, many years ago, because I asked that question to some of our chemists, they have tested 300V in a lab, in a control environment, of course, to see where they can break it. And if I'm not mistaken, if I can still remember, it was like 346 Fahrenheit that the oil.
56.
356? 356?
1550.
Okay, that it took it before it said, okay, that's enough. So yeah, it can get very hot and still perform.
I mean, that's always a comfort, especially for those of us who are sitting on basically on top of the pit boxes and the guy screaming the oil temperature is going up. And it's like, what are you going to do about it? Well, we need to make it to the next pit stop if at all possible. And as long as it doesn't climb above, and now we know where your magic number is. And again, nobody is going to do that on a long run, sustained, I should say. We're not trying to run 24 hours at 350 degrees, but you'd like to know that if a piece of debris or something gets up there, you got a little bit of a cushion and not having to worry about instant failure. I guess that's what we're getting to.
Yeah, and you'd be amazed on some of these cars that do race endurance, depending, like you said, where they're racing, like Malaysia, where very humid, very hot, where those temperatures are up that close, it's very consistent. But being that, of course, the technology of the engine, the metal energy, everything that they have today, the type of technology, engines could take so much. Look at a Formula One engine, right? So this product also does that. It's up to that level of performance when it comes to those type of temperatures.
And I would say too, the esters by nature are polar, so they cling to ferrous metals, which is another benefit of these products. In addition to all the things we talked about, is we talked about cold starts. You have people that, I run this in my classic car. Is it okay for that? And we say, yeah, as long as you're kind of maintaining it and changing it every 6 months or 3,000 miles. But the good part is during cold starts, there's still a film of the ester material that kind of clings to the metal. So you get that startup and there's no metal on metal contact. We've also had teams, Joey's had teams where the oil pan or something rips out and he goes for a half a lap or a lap with draining oil over the track, and they get in, they go, I thought the motor would surely give. And they go, no, there was just enough lubrication still inside that motor, even with it empty, to kind of keep the main, materials still, it's a kind of a good insurance plan a lot of times. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the strength of the 300V. Those are the kind of testimonials that we see on the track, not often, but when we do see them, we're surprised. And it's a good thing to just keep recording all those information that we get, because that data sometimes goes back to France to let them know, look, this catastrophic thing happened, but look at the engine parts, they were still all intact and stuff. So yeah, it's pretty cool.
I got to ask this, Nolan, because it just seems like something that you would have been up for, knowing your marketing experience and everything. Is that one of the reasons why all these changes are being made in that 300V can and everything? Because it's the 50th year. I mean, is it time to take advantage of the history of this product?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, we look, this current ester core version came out in 2011. So I think we kind of knew the 50th anniversary was coming up, and we kind of had our chemists kind of, and that's a good thing. It's like we look at the chemists and we go, hey, what has changed? What are we seeing in the market? What are the teams telling us? You said it yourself, more than 80 countries, we have feedback. We have feedbacks from teams in Malaysia to here. We have Dakar coming up in January, where we have a racing lab on site. So we have all this feedback. So we kind of came to the lab and said, hey, it's been 10 years since we've reformulated it. Let's get in the lab. It's our 50th anniversary. Yeah, that's one reason. So on the marketing side and the branding, it's great to kind of revitalize it. But it's also the lab guys have all this information they've kind of been holding on to from experience, saying, and Joey can talk about that. We have, there's new LSPI concerns with certain motors.
And there's new emission systems, knowing that this product is making it more onto the street. Okay. And we do see it in guys that want to, modify car for the street. He takes it to track periodically, not all the time, but the car has a twin turbo or supercharger, or they just beefed up the engine. So they go to a product that they know they can rely on. But we have to take into consideration too, that smaller engines now with the superchargers, with the twin turbos, have been causing some issues, right? And one of those issues is low speed pre-ignition. So this product had to be designed too with that in mind, because of the type of displacement engines that have those issues. That had to be taken into mind. The other thing is too, this product also works in diesels. So they have their diesel particulate filter, but guess what? Now Porsche with their 911s and some of their SUVs have also come out with a particular filter called a GPF, gasoline particulate filter. So that means that this product also has to take that into consideration, because you don't want to pollute those emission systems. They're very expensive to replace. And we don't want to be in fault because they use this product on a car. It's a street car. Yes, it's not a long drain interval product. And that's why we advise to change it every 3,000 miles, even if you drive it on the street. But we take all those things into consideration to make sure that if this product does make it into a street application with emissions, that it doesn't void the system by ruining it, and making sure that the LSPI too is taken care of.
And even in biofuels, that's stuff that's more and more race vehicles in the last 10, 20 years have been using that. So this was compatible on a certain level with biofuels, but we see different people using different fuels, different ratios, things like that. And so we went back and the chemists kind of made sure that this, didn't affect it at all. They had more and more test samples to kind of go through and reformulate this in the way they probably would have done it back then with more research. So I always say, this is still a great product and it'll be on shelves for a little while, but this product as it's coming, again, it's just taking all those things that our chemists have seen in the last decade. And yes, it was convenient that the 50th anniversary is coming up, but we kind of did that formula in mind, knowing it had been about a decade since the last reformulation, that let's make all the improvements for the 50th year. To make a product that's built for the future and has our current technology.
Absolutely. And also, just to let you know, because we get this question asked, how good it works with other fuels. Yeah, so it's compatible to alcohol-based fuels, ethanol, up to E85. So yes, it had to be reformulated, taking that into mind too, that we got these other type of fuels coming out now. And so, yeah, they did a very good job with this new generation 300V. And I'm sure that right now they're probably designing a new 300V for the next, I don't know, maybe 5 years. We don't know, right? It's always changing, like I said.
One thing that we haven't touched on, and I was thinking about this today when I was reading about your company, and all of a sudden a little light went on in my head. I had been down in one of the local motorcycle shops last couple of weeks and picking up my grandson some a crash helmet. And I remember seeing at this particular deal, they specialize in Yamahas and Hondas. And I seen your product up there on the wall. I mean, you know, they specialize for 4-stroke engines. And also, if I remember correctly, your 4T Gold is like, that's where I got the idea of the semi-synthetic. But you know, when you do the rest of the homework, I saw that, oh, what's the best motorcycle oil recommended, especially I guess in Europe, was Motul. I mean, it was your product at the top of the list, and right in there, you know, with you know, one of the top, out of the top 5, you had, you know, 3 of them in the top 5.
And it's funny you say that, because here in the United States, Mr. Dave Woolman is actually that made that happen. He attacked the power sport side, you know, with all the products that we have, from a 100% synthetic product all the way down to a mineral product, and did very well in the power sport. That gave actually Motul the name, and of course our famous brake fluid. But automotive, of course, it's a big chunk of our business. You know, it's a big chunk of our bread and butter, if you want to call that. And but that started it all. The power sports side did.
And that comes because Dave Woolman, our former president, he liked to work with the Yoshimura team in the 80s, and that's how Motul came about in the US. Is coming back on the power sports side, and we learned a lot. You know, a lot of there's a 300V for the power sports side that's completely different packaging. You may have seen on the shelves. It's a famous green color. It's dyed green, so people always call it the alien blood and all these different names. But those motors, right? They have to deal with even more than it's automotive, right? They deal with, some of them have shared gearboxes, things like that.
Well, they take care of more of the components, right? You got a wet clutch, you got a gearbox, and everything that goes into that crankcase, right? So that oil has to be very robust, because it's got to take other considerations because of that wet clutch and gearbox. So just imagine how robust that product has to be designed when it comes to a motorcycle engine.
So a lot of those esters and the high quality of the motorcycle oils kind of came to the automotive space. I would say it's kind of like, hey, it's good enough to kind of withstand all this. Let's use that similar technology and something that just have to focus on the motor, cooling, performing in the motor, not having to deal with the gearbox and all that. So yeah, we have everything from, you know, we have snowmobiles, we have side-by-sides. We're going out to the Mint 400 tomorrow to be with our trophy trucks, side-by-sides, dirt bikes. So we have basically, if it has a motor in it, we have something for it. So,
well, but you saying that, excuse me, let's talk a little bit about the other lubricants that we haven't touched on, more of the industrial type stuff. I mean, the gear oils and the brake fluids. I mean, it's not like your one-dimensional high performance, you know, street car. You guys, you know, go have a broad base that touches a lot of needs in a lot of different industries. So enlighten us on that. And, you know, at the same time, while we're going through this, I mean, do you have any other new products maybe you're planning in the near future? I mean, the 50th year, it's time to roll out the red carpet.
Yeah, we have some new products that we add to our competition line, because remember, our line is pretty broad, right? We have a service line that I like to call the service line, because that's what it is. And then you have your competition line. Well, within the competition line, we have a new high torque DCTF. We have a service one, and we'll have here shortly a competition one too for the DCTF types of transmissions out there. Also, we're adding a new brake fluid called the RBF 700. That again it's a product that we made because we know that new components of brake systems, new materials are used. Carbon brakes, carbon discs get a lot hotter, so we, you know, again, have to make a product that can withstand those types of heat.
And to that DCTF, that's again following the new technology in racing. We work with some of our Super GT, the Nissan Nismo team that run the GTRs, and those have dual clutch transmissions in Japan. And that's where a lot of the development happened, where they go, hey, let's do a even higher ester-based DCTF fluid that can withstand the power we're using in racing. And then even some of the, you know, the C8 Corvette. We work with Amelia Hartford, who had the record for a while for the fastest Corvette. She's one of the first persons in the U.S. to test that high torque DCTF with up to 1,000 foot-pounds of torque in her C8. So we have data and samples that we sent back to France from her running in the Corvette. So working with even outside of racing, just other partners to kind of get that data and kind of adapt to the market.
Absolutely.
And come out with, like, the newer cars have a newer transmission, newer gearbox. We got to make sure that we have a high performance product that also works for that application.
Yeah, so we have every committed products for racing, from our gear oils, very, a service gear oil and so on. So we covered all the bases, even like I said, in power sports, especially with the two-stroke stuff that we have too. We have we'll call the 802T, that's the brother of the 300V, but in two-stroke. So we have to make sure that we cover everything and we do it right. It's not because I just work for Motul, but I know that the products I've used and the testimonials I always get, I've seen it work very well in all the sectors of power sports and motorsports.
And there's
Hey,
even
real quick, Joey, we touched on the heat and the, I guess the new brake fluid you have out there, but Jeremy was asking here, can you talk a little bit more about that brake fluid, and what it does better than maybe somebody else's product does?
Yeah, well, I know
Is a higher boiling temperature? Is that what we're looking at here?
Yeah, higher boiling point because, like I said, of the new components out there for sure, where it's needed, right? But I've always stressed this out to everybody because this is what Dave had taught me. The brake fluid's not going to do the whole job. We make these brake fluids because of those necessities, but I always like to advise everybody, make sure that if you have a car that has more horsepower that you upgrade it. Professional teams know that, but the do-it-yourself or the guys that goes out to the track there, they always make sure that if you go up in horsepower, you also look at the brake system, all right? Be compatible to that. The brake fluid's gonna help you because yes, at those boiling points, you want a product that can take the heat. You want a product that could recover quickly when it gets to that point. That's very important. When you let off that pedal and you go down that straightaway, you wanna make sure that that's not spongy or you have a pedal because you wanna stop that car. These products do that very, very well when it comes to that. So do we have an RBF 600, a 660, and a 700? We cover it all. Again, when we get calls from consumers, we advise them what's the best product they can use. Some will call me and say, oh, well, I know now you have the new 660. I want to use it. Okay, well, okay, but it costs us this much. Okay, what kind of racing do you do? What kind of driving do you do? And so on, right? Then I advise them, you don't have to go that further up to 6. You have any problems with the 600? No problems whatsoever. Stick to that. So we're very fair here, not because we want to push something that's more expensive or this and that. We got to make sure that the customer gets the right product for the right needs.
Yeah,
okay,
so-
we got one of our folks asking us, what is the DOT rating on that fluid? And I know that's kind of like an old standard. So, what would you consider that DOT rating on that?
Well, just remember that brake fluids, well, it's backward compatible to .4, excuse me. I know what you're trying to say. Okay,
Thank
but
you.
just remember that the Department of Transportation puts out these ratings or these boiling points and wet points, the Department of Transportation.
Right.
But when it comes up to these high performance, they go way above those standards. I always get that question asked. It says, well, are you in the standards? Wait a minute here. It's just like our non-DOT tire, right? It has a different level of component and material for the track. Also, our brake fluids, though they're .4 compatible, right? We got to make sure those things go way higher than the standards. And I always let them know. And they understand once I talk to them in layman's term how it works. They go, hey, I never knew that. I go, oh, yeah, that's the way it works.
Thank you for that. I mean, again, working in the high performance industry, you understand that. But, sometimes people, they just, they relate to it from, early days. I mean, the high performance stuff that's out there available on the shelf today has exceeded those numbers, I think, the overall standard by quite a bit. And I appreciate you kind of explaining that so that the people who had questions, got them answered. Thank you.
Yeah, when you go like from a .446 boiling point to a 617 RBF 600, there's a big difference there, and there's a reason for that,
Yeah, that's what we say. We always joke that I always have all these guys that upgrade several hundred horsepower in their car and they never touch the brakes. It's the upside upgrading the brake fluid, which is great. Our brake fluid will help you out a little bit, but if you upgrade the brake system, you can then figure out what level you need. So the RBS 700, yes, we're coming out with it because we did have teams like, FAF Motorsports, BMW Motorsports that are racing Rolex 24 hours. And they go, hey, I want the pedal to feel this way. Hey, we're using some new components like the carbon ceramic, stuff like that. So we're seeing a little bit higher temperatures. Yeah, let's go ahead and give them something, again, that step up. But it's the average guy who has a good brake system on his car. We've had plenty of people that run our RBS 600 still, and they go, yeah, never boiled it. I change it often, no issues. And I go, yeah, it's great. Use that. try 660. We're just trying to give different options for folks that you know that have different based on their system and based on the racing they're doing, whether it's a time attack or long rally, things like that.
Drag race, right?
Yeah.
Quarter mile, yeah. And just to let you know, I think you mentioned the other things that we're doing. Yeah, we are getting more into the heavy duty industrial oils and stuff like that. So we've hired the right people for that too, because we're expanding just like we are in Europe. We're expanding here in the US. So yeah, we're getting the right type of team to tackle that market too. But it's exciting because we keep growing and growing. But then again, it's a company that still has true racing products and everything else that goes with it.
And to that end, I think, we have a Gibson motor partnership, and it's a 360 partnership. So they use our industrial fluids, which we're now getting in the US, to machine the blocks for the motors in the Gibsons. And then they fill it with 300V, and then they recommend or require 300V of the teams like an LMP2 and IMSA. So they use our fluids to machine the parts, and then they use them inside the parts. So we're trying to work on those partnerships in the US so that teams that race with our 300V also use our metalworking fluids when they machine the parts through a Haas machine or so on. So
does this product line, will it include, excuse me, like a heavy duty grease, like a wheel bearing grease or, something like that?
Yeah,
lubricating
definitely.
ball joints, whatever.
Yeah, definitely. As we're getting into that market, you're talking heavy duty, correct?
Yeah.
If as more and more we get into that market, and we penetrate that market, we have to have the right products for it too. So we do make stuff like that in Europe, and we'll see how, as the market, we get more deeper into the necessity of the products that we need to bring to match that market.
So, gentlemen, when you say use that in Europe, do you have? Is it primarily everything still made in France and then shipped over here, or do you have basically a distributor and a place where you make the product here in the United States?
Yeah, so I would say, there's still a lot of our product. I think 300V, I think as a company, just as a mantra, I think it'll always be blended in France. I think that's just kind of the halo product. They want that to be blended in France. There are some stuff that as we do more, again, he's talking about the service size product that we get more and more of. So they go to dealerships, the 8100. More and more of that now is being blended in the US
to meet the demands, because as demands, as we grow, we need to meet those demands, and we're kind of overflowing already in Europe. So yes, we're going to start making some of this product, and we already started making some of the product here in the US. And
there's some stuff too as well. We have a dedicated twin line of products for the Harley Davidson's Indian V twins. So that was again a very local need, and we work with France to kind of take some blends to make it here locally. And again, then you can put the made in the USA and stuff like that on it for that market. So we have a really great twin product for the Harley Davidson that's also made here. So we have certain products when it has a need that we make here, but a large majority is still blended in France or in Europe and then brought over here.
Yes.
Okay, I've got to ask the question because we discussed it last night on the show that I did here on EPARTRADE. How's the supply chain going as far as from France back over to here? Has everything been able to make it into the US like it needs to be, or we have to kind of like this you got to get aggressive to get it?
Yeah, that's a very good question, because everything's been affected. We know that, right? You see containers here in Long Beach sitting out there like sitting ducks. They're just sitting there waiting to get unloaded, right? But there's more to that, right? You have raw materials too that have taken a big hit. So it's like a chain reaction to everything. So we may have the can, but we may not have the raw material or enough of it. So there's so many things that come to play. Shipping is one of them, as you can see. Raw materials is the other one. And even plastic, even caps can be a problem. So all I'm trying to say is it's affected everybody in every shape and form. So we're trying very hard to keep that supply chain going. And so far, there's some good things and some other things that we're like, hey, making the sign of a cross. Oh, please, get it here.
Yeah, and to that end, so the 300V, the original, it launched at 24 Hours of Le Mans this year in the summer, and so the plan initially, I think, for the world was to have it at the end of this year. It's probably Q1 next year. We have some of the product that you can see here, obviously. This is one of probably 25 cans in the United States. But we're working through it. So some of this stuff is being delayed. And to his end, the caps, our traditional red cap, we have gray caps coming. So we try to be resourceful in France. We have some of these products shipping with different, labeling or different caps. But we're making our way through it. So some of the product launches are delayed, but current inventory has been okay. So.
Well, guys, once again, as I have said all day long, when I see these two folks come back on, they're sitting there telling us, boys, your playtime's over with. You got to come inside and do your homework. And so really appreciate your time, Joey. And no, it's been great getting a chance to, get educated on your product. Congratulations on the celebrating your 50th anniversary, even though you've been around longer than that.
Yeah.
And good luck with the rest of your this season and going into 2022.
Thank you
Thank you
guys.
so
Appreciate
much.
you
Thank
having
you.
us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joey. Thank you very much, Nolan.
The concept for EPARTRADE is basically, in my opinion, there's a big hole in the internet. So the internet started many years ago, but there's never been an online business community for racers on the World Wide Web. The need for EPARTRADE is actually quite obvious. Basically, people in the business of auto racing need a place online to hang out and to get their problems solved.
It's extremely simple for a buyer or for a supplier to interact on the platform. The first thing you need to do is sign in, which is free. And the second thing is, when you see a product that you're interested in, all you need to do is click on request more information. If it's a company, you click on request more information, and then from there, it is forwarded directly to the buyer or to the supplier.
You can go to epartrade.com, you become part of a community of businesses in racing, and it makes sourcing products much easier than just on the internet or using Google.
At EPARTRADE, there is no e-commerce. It's literally a connection just like at a trade show. So now, any time of the year, a buyer could reach out to a supplier through an email.
More than that, it's a place to go just to keep current every day. So it's a good place to start your workday in your racing business or in your offices of your professional race team. And you know you're current when it comes to new technology, industry news, technical papers, technical videos, all of that and more. We're not looking for a million hits per day. All we want is people who are really the volume buyers of racing products in the racing industry to be part of the little world of EPARTRADE. We have racing businesses participating from around the world. So you get suppliers from around the world, you get buyers from around the world.
EPARTRADE really eliminates having to travel, closing down your shop. Now you have a place to showcase globally your racing product and technology.
There are two types of people, racers and everyone else. Racer Magazine is for those who believe that racing is a way of life. Racer embodies the excellence that defines a sport driven by passion, courage, and ingenuity. Get 1 year of both Racer's print and digital edition for only $39 with instant access to our entire digital issue archive. Subscribe now at info.racer.com.